Okay, we're back after healthcare in Hawaii with Senator Josh Green. Now we're talking to Stephen Kahn in Silicon Valley. Am I right, Stephen?
Yes, you are, Jay. In Silicon Valley it is.
And we're calling this show, Artkick Realizes Bill Gates' Dream, or his original project. And we'll talk about Artkick and figure out what it is here on Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. So first, let me introduce Stephen Kahn. He's the co-founder of Artkick, which is an app. And it's a new Silicon Valley startup that's bringing digital art to America and thus fully realizing Bill Gates' original vision, hence the title of our show. Stephen is a marketing and management professional with experience in high-tech and consumer marketing companies, including Procter & Gamble, Borland International, I remember them, Lotus, I remember that, Atari.
You're dating yourself.
And Clorox, I remember that. That's not too tech. This is biotech, maybe. He served as a venture partner at Moore David Al Ventures, was the CEO and co-founder of iMiner and Integrity QA, holds a bachelor's from RPI and an MBA from the Haas School of Business at California, Berkeley. And he's a photographer, which I think is really an important point, particularly for Artkick. And his photography can be accessed through Artkick. And I'll also mention he's a husband, father, and dog trainer.
Oh, my goodness. We've got the complete story here.
Welcome, Stephen. Welcome to the show. It's nice to meet you.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
So tell us, what exactly is Artkick? And then when we know what that is, we'll figure out how you got involved.
Fair enough. Artkick is actually a free service. Our slogan is art for free on your TV. The company started not really all that long ago. It's a raw startup, started about 9 months ago. And our CEO was basically looking at these ugly black rectangles that were scattered about his house, in his family room, in his living room, in his bedroom, and basically TVs that are turned off, and was thinking, that something could be done to that. And that was sort of the genesis of the company, was to eliminate a problem, or at least a perceived problem. We turned it around and thought, okay, we can enrich everybody's lives by bringing art into their home, into their environment. People as early as 40,000 years ago, like cavemen, were decorating their environment. Why couldn't we do the same? And so that's what Artkick is. It's a free service for anybody that has basically an app. A smartphone or tablet is used as the intelligent remote control, and the display is done on an HD TV. So think of it as a two-screen experience, where, again, the smartphone or tablet is your intelligent remote, and so you can explore, discover, and share images using that device, and they're all displayed on the HD TV. And it's amazing how gorgeous these images are. We have images, well over 50,000 images from over 2,000 museums throughout the world, and then and these are images in the public domain. And then we also license images, photographs from private photographers. And over time, we'll add premium content. But basically, the fundamental service, and what we've launched just this last month, is free.
Huh. Okay, lots of questions about that. But before we get to that, let's get to how you got involved in this. What vectors, put you in the direction of Artkick? What things brought you here today?
Well, as you so generously pointed out, I have a very eclectic background. A relatively successful high-tech career, and I had pretty much thought I was done with my high-tech career, and sort of transformed or morphed myself into a photographer. I'd always been a serious amateur, but about 12, 13 years ago, I took it up professionally, and I was very happy with my photography business. And an old friend and former colleague, who is our CEO, Sheldon Lab, had this idea for Artkick, and basically convinced me to sort of get back in the fold. And because it was so related to things I was really passionate about, it just made sense, so I came back in and have been just energetically involved ever since.
What role does your photography play in all? I mean, I got from the introduction that that your photography is on the site, in the program, but what does that play in terms of your interest in the program?
My personal photography is somewhat peripheral. It's part of the content of the site, but most of the content is from museums throughout the world. So it's more just demonstrating that we can indeed put private photographers' content on the site, and we will be doing more and more of that. But it really was just sort of a melding of my interests in images and in high-tech marketing.
Do you modify the images you get from the museums?
Say again, please.
Do you edit them? Do you crop them? Do you change the
No, we
color correction, that kind of thing?
We do not. In fact, what's happened over the last 20 or 30 years is most of the museums digitized all of their work and were attempting to monetize it. And about 10 years ago, most of them gave up on the idea of being able to monetize it and decided to share it with their various publics. So starting with the Rijksmuseum and going on to pretty much all of the major museums throughout the world, they have digital versions of the images that they host, of the art that they have, and they make them available in the public domain. Many of the huge foundations like the Yale Foundation and many other university foundations have pretty much done the same thing. So there's a wealth of, if you will, free high quality art available. The government has the NASA Hubble images are available, and we've picked those up. A black and white photographer like Ansel Adams, some of his work was commissioned by the government, so some of his work is available. And it was just really hard for people to find it all. I mean, it's there, and it's free, but what we did with Artkick is basically, package it up kind of like a TV guide, if you will. And instead of having a playlist, which you would have for music, we have view lists that are sort of curated view lists in many, many, many categories. So you can get started by basically selecting sports cars or Ansel Adams, or I'd like to look at what's at MoMA in New York City. And as you view items, if you like them, you can then basically select more of the same. So it's a way to explore and discover, learn if you want to. If not, just decorate your environment.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like something whose time has come. And I have a lot of thoughts about that. But when you go out to the museums, do you travel to the museums? Do you look on the walls? Or do you just, go to their websites or have them send you a disc? And how do you actually get the images from them? There's so many museums in the world that will have a bookstore will sell you a disc.
We do not physically have to go to the museums. And in fact, the images are hosted by many of the museums themselves, and there are links available in the public domain. So all we do is pick up those links. And we try to be somewhat selective about where we're going, but on the other hand, we're also trying to appeal to a broad audience. So,
I remember being concerned at one time about the intellectual property aspects of the images that are made available in my museum. They don't. Could they claim intellectual property rights in this?
Yeah,
by virtue of their photograph and so forth.
They're in the public domain, which means that indeed that the artist or photographer the copyright has expired because the individual has been dead for 70 to 95 years. So the contemporary photographers, in that case, we have to license that privately. So most of our content is public domain, which means that many of these artists or photographers have passed away.
Just a footnote thought. We're freewheeling in our discussion here, Stephen. is that this could be a great showplace, actually, for living artists and living photographers to show their stuff to the world. They might not have a big opportunity, let the world know what they're doing. I mean, it's hard for somebody, in a garret somewhere to share his or her art with the world, and this could be a way to do that, couldn't it?
Precisely. Our business model is what's called a freemium business model, which means there's a free component and a premium component. And right now we've launched the free component, and that will always be a large portion of what we do. But the premium component, where we could potentially pay artists a licensing fee, so contemporary artists a licensing fee to show their work, is something that we envision doing in the future. And there, for instance, the work, like my work, would be a proof statement that can be done. Because if I weren't a founder of the company, then someone would have to pay me a licensing fee in order to show my work. Or alternatively, I could elect to show it for free because I wanted the additional exposure. But one way or t'other, it would be a premium station, if you will, a premium channel on Artkick.
Yeah, it just sounds like sort of a graphic version of iTunes of sorts, where I can open up an account and I can send you things, and then people can maybe buy them or pay to look at them.
Well, a great analogy would be to some of the music streaming services like Spotify, where there's a basic free service available where you select what you want to listen to. In our case, you select what you want to view, and then subsequently some percentage of the users can opt for a premium service, which we don't yet even have.
Wow, but this has got all kinds of prospect on it. We're going to take a short break, Stephen. That's Stephen Kahn. He's one of the founders of Artkick, which is, I guess, an app and a website, too. And here we are on Think Tech Talks on a given Tuesday, and we're talking about Artkick and how it realizes Bill Gates' dream. And after we come back, we're going to talk about why in the world we're referring to Bill Gates. 1 minute break. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Now we're back. We're live. We're here on Think Tech Talks on a given Tuesday in the 2 to 3 block. And we are talking with Stephen Kahn in Silicon Valley. He's one of the founders of Artkick, which brings art to the world. And we're calling this Artkick and how it realizes Bill Gates' dream. So the first question, since we picked that particular title, Stephen, is why in the world is this realizing Bill Gates' dream? What was Bill Gates' dream, and why was it not realized earlier?
Well, Bill had a vision, I think in the late 80s, that there would be digital art in revolving, if you will, interactive picture frames in people's houses, on people's walls. And he thought that would catch on pretty quickly. And in fact, at the time, he was, I think, relatively confident that it would happen, and started acquiring digital images and basically amassed a huge library. There was a company that he privately funded called Interactive Picture Systems, and it's morphed a couple of times, and today it's called Corbis, and it's privately owned still by Bill. It has the rights to over 800 million images. So he definitely saw that there was going to be value in it over time. And in his own home, he's basically did realize the dream in the early 90s, and as I understand it, based on articles in the Seattle Times, there are many digital frames throughout his house where people can view digital art. He had the benefit, of course, in the early 90s of having a lot of money to realize his vision. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that then. However, today, in 2014, it can be done basically for free using the Artkick service, assuming that you already have a smart TV and that you want to connect it up to do something else when you're not viewing video on it.
I know this sounds retrospective, but when computers first got started, I looked at it, I said, why can't we just take a static, picture and put it on a monitor screen and hang the monitor from the wall and let it be art? And then we got tired of that picture, we could change it to another picture. And I think, in a way, that's what you're doing. You can decorate your house with monitors, these days, big flat monitors, hang them on the wall and have a living museum. Anyone can do that. I think that's where you're going, at least in part, isn't it?
That's precisely where we're going. And, our current thinking is that people aren't quite ready to buy large numbers of digital frames throughout their house, and that we're trying to sort of multi-purpose the existing screens. But longer term, I think, what you just articulated is exactly where it's going. One of the reasons that people don't buy art, if you will, is expense, and then another is the permanence of it all. When you buy an image, you think to yourself, gee, I need to like that. I need to like that for more than a month. I need to like that for more than a year. I'm concerned about what my friends and family are going to think about it. And yet when you listen to music, you change the music to suit your mood. And now with Artkick, you can change the images to suit your mood. You don't have a huge financial commitment in an illiquid asset. And it just gives you a lot more flexibility. If you feel down, or you feel happy, or you feel festive, the images can suit your mood.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of it's an oblique on those slideshow programs where you take everything in your camera and it plays them like a slideshow, automated slideshow forever and ever. But somehow this is more, I guess, traditional, to hang it somewhere, leave it there, and you haven't made the big investment and you're not taking the big risk, but you're enjoying the work just as if you did, which is a very nice thought. And I guess, what comes to me is why did you make this an app instead of, I guess, is it an app and a website both? I mean, what is the, ultimate direction of this?
It's really a service. If you will, it's a streaming image service. The app is necessary because we wanted some intelligence. Think of the app as a remote control device, but we wanted some intelligence in the remote control device. So it allows you to view categories of images, and we have like 16 major categories. One of the categories are in fact, these curated view lists. So then you can look at categories of view lists. You can create your own view list. So that we wanted some intelligence in the process of how you selected images, considering that we're talking about tens of thousands of images from thousands of museums. And so we needed something other than a dumb device. So by taking advantage of the fact that many people have smartphones and iPads or Android tablets or Android phones, we use the intelligence of those devices. So that's what the app is all about. But ultimately, we feel that the real impressive part about it is having the display on a large screen TV in your living space, and that those ugly black rectangles don't need to be that way, and we can make them pretty and enrich people's lives and give them an opportunity to have a nicer environment.
It's true. You can leave your TV on 24/7. I don't think it affects its useful life very much. And why have a black screen hanging there empty with nothing when you could easily have something good looking there? But how does the app work the picture? So if I download the app, and I guess it works on both iPhone and Android, if I download the app, what controls do I have to affect what's playing on that bigger screen?
Well, basically, you can control it manually by viewing categories and then viewing individual pieces of work.
I'm sending the picture to the screen.
Whatever you view on the smartphone or tablet will also be viewed on the screen, because the image is sent from our server to both places. So basically, you pair up the phone or the tablet with your TV, and that's done because they're both connected to the internet, and the images are served from our server to both locations. So if you have to think, basically, those two devices are married up.
Step me through that, will you, Stephen? Step me through that. How does that work? I get the phone, I load the app. How do I get the picture from the app onto the TV? What steps do I take?
Inside the app, there are basically startup screens that walk you through that process. But effectively, what happens is a code is sent to the TV screen, and then that code has to be entered into the app, and it gets registered. And once it's registered, kind of like pairing a Bluetooth device, if you will, then those two things will find each other all the time.
So then I can actually control what's on the screen from the app, and I can pick a picture or a series of pictures, I suppose, on the app, and they will show, because it's paired, they will show on the screen, and I can leave it there, right?
Yes, and in fact, when you can use the phone as a remote control and just individually select pictures, or you can select a view list, and then the view list also then has you also then select what the duration is. So you can say, all right, of the 55 images in this view list, I would like them to change every 10 minutes. And then you no longer have to interact with the phone or the tablet. It'll just happen in the background. Or you could say, I'd like to see these images once every 12 hours, have it changed. So you could have iconic images of the Mona Lisa or American Gothic or Nighthawks or whatever it is that you want to have, and it can be up there for as little or as long as you want without you actually having to interact with it very frequently.
I can visualize a cocktail party in my house, and drinking a good wine and watching the screen change and being titillated and surprised with every change.
We've actually had people who have suggested that it's actually a great sort of a party game, if you will, because in addition to the image in the view list, whatever the next image is that comes up, if you have the smart device, you also then have information about the image. Which museum is it in? What's the name of the painting or the photograph? What's the name of the artist, the photographer? And you can play this. You can see whether the other people at your party or at your cocktail party know what the image is. So you can even make a game of it, but that's clearly not the way it's designed.
Now, you spoke of information, and I think that's really important. I'm thinking of Art Appreciation 101. You see these paintings, they're hanging in great museums in the world. You can see the quality of them. Maybe you can figure out the century and the artist, maybe, or the school. But you don't know that much about them unless somebody tells you. So there's information, I take it, attached to each painting, and that information shows up where?
All of the information, basically the Explore, Discover, and Share shows up on your tablet or phone. So on the phone or the tablet, there are links to the artist, the name of the painting, the museum, and in many cases there are even short videos if it's an iconic image that's famous, with even more description from an art expert, sometimes a couple of 3-minute. So some people want to learn more and they view it as an educational tool. But again, for a lot of people, it's just, how do I make my environment look nicer? How do I decorate my home? How do I decorate my office space? And they're not as concerned about the learning. But you get to choose whether, if you want to delve into it, the smartphone allows you to do that. I apologize. Let me turn this silly thing off.
We have this problem all the time. It's
Sorry about that.
It's the smartphone thing.
That was a dumb phone. And it just rang away. Anyway, I'm back.
Go ahead.
So basically, you have the opportunity to learn or to enhance your environment, and you can learn as little or as much as you want.
Well, I have this vision of a sort of a Woody Allen cocktail party now, and they're asking him, "Oh, what is that interesting-looking painting?" And he can answer any question about it. He's completely familiar, and his guests are so impressed. When in fact, he's just looked at it for the first time. He's seen the information on your app, and he knows everything about it, and they are so impressed anyway. I can see doing that, actually.
In the process, I'm almost accidentally learning. My art appreciation is getting a little bit better at any rate.
The other thing that comes to mind is a trip. Let's say my wife really likes, the gallery in, what's the gallery in Florence? I forget the name, the Uffizi, whatever it is, the gallery in Florence. Mm-hmm. And she wants to see that real bad. She's got to see the David, yet still again. And so we're going to take a tour through the gallery before we make the trip. And we can do that with your app, right? We can see the whole,
absolutely. I mean, you can go to the Louvre. You can go to MoMA, and in fact, we have relatives in New York City, so we were recently there on a family trip, and I took my 16-year-old son to MoMA, and I wanted to show him Starry Night by Van Gogh, which is one of my favorite images. And we got there, and sure enough, it was there. It was behind glass. There was a guard in front of it. There was a crowd around it, and a lot of people in front of it with their iPhones up or their phones taking pictures of it. So, we're behind all these hands trying to look at this image. And it was impressive, and we really enjoyed it. And I also knew that there were another 24 Van Goghs, at MoMA, and I wanted to see them. But as it turns out, most museums only display a small percentage of all of the artwork that they have on a given day. And on this trip, the only Van Gogh that they were showing was that one. And so ironically, we actually had more Van Goghs from MoMA on the Artkick service that day to be seen than what I could actually see in the real museum. Kind of strange.
Yeah. Well, I want to take another break at this point, but I want to come back and ask you about the intersection of technology and museums in general. It just occurs to me that not just this site, not just Artkick, but maybe a lot of technology these days is competing with museums. And museums have been a wonderful, experience for us in our generation. But query where are they going in the future because of the way technology can bring their art to the public in electronic ways. So that's Stephen Kahn. He's one of the founders of Artkick, which is a Silicon Valley company doing museum art and photography on a website and an app. This is Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. We'll be right back after this short break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here on Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. It's Tuesday in the 3 to 4 block, and we're here with Stephen Kahn. He's a founder of Artkick, which does museum art and photography on your TV, your big TV at home, with an app on your smartphone. So we've been talking about, taking a look at museum art on your smartphone and your TV at home, and it occurs to me that this will have a sort of an intersectional effect with the art in the museum. And I recall going to see last summer with my wife the Mona Lisa, and we had such a hard time getting close to it. The room was filled with people. It's a small painting, and you travel all that way, and then you go all that trouble to see the backs of people all clamoring to see it, and that's pretty frustrating. But if I go to your app, I can see it without any trouble at all. What do you think, Stephen?
Well, it is actually kind of interesting when you see a lot of these images on large HD TV screens. They're rich, they're vibrant, they have a high contrast ratio, and a lot of times in the museums they're displayed under low light conditions to preserve the images. So many of these images look surprisingly wonderful on these larger screen TVs. Also, as you point out, there's not a large crowd of people in front of you. There aren't a lot of people holding up their hands taking pictures of it. So it's another way to appreciate things. I mean, I actually liken it to sort of the concert experience. Not everybody goes to concerts all the time. In fact, many times we listen to music with a pair of $10 earbuds. Now, the experience isn't the same as going to a live concert, but it's plenty good enough, and a lot of people enjoy listening to music with earbuds. And looking at art on an HD TV screen isn't the same as going to a museum where you can actually, analyze the brushstrokes if you're inclined to do that. But not everybody can get to a museum. Not everybody wants to go to a museum all the time. But the idea of enhancing or decorating someone's environment, whether it's museum art or automobiles or sports figures or food or Hubble space images, you name it, most people do want to do that.
Yeah, you can't get too close to them either. In that same trip, a tourist couple got too close to one of those big paintings. They had a rope, sort of a red velvet rope.
Sure.
And they went over the rope to try to get close to it and look at it, and the silly fellow touched it. All he had to do was touch it. The museum guards came from every corner and took him away to the police. This was in the Louvre. Pretty tough business. But, if you wanted to explore, and this is a question, I guess, if you wanted to explore a painting on Artkick, could you magnify a part of it? I mean, could you have a kind of an area where you say, I want to see that close up. I want to see what you've got on the brush strokes. I want to see the exact line, the exact texture of it. Do you have that?
We don't. We do and we don't. Mostly we don't. We have streaming video, and so it would, and the images are reasonably large, but you can't pinch them to open them up. On the other hand, if you're looking at them on a large screen TV, they're already quite large, and in many cases, they're larger than real size. So, that does enhance the detail that, in these images, and these images are generally very high quality.
Yeah, well, yeah, and indeed, I mean, now they have ultra high definition, and that ought to really play.
Yeah, I mean, it's Blu-ray quality, which is 1920 by 1280 pixels. So that's a fair amount of content. And when people view these things, they're viewing them back, in the room, 10, 12 feet, sometimes 15 feet away. And so there's an incredible amount of detail, for that kind of viewing distance.
So where do you think the intersection goes between the museums and this kind of hang it on the wall, anything you want program like Artkick? Are museums going to be overtaken? Is the traffic in museums going to be affected? Maybe the next time I go to see the Mona Lisa, there won't be such a crowd there anymore. They'll be watching Artkick instead.
Well, this is me speculating, but I think it's quite the contrary. I think what happens is a lot of the museums are kind of waking up to the fact that not everybody gets there all the time. And as we discussed earlier, they can't show all of their work all of the time. So they're wanting to build their audience, not only sort of, if you will, the in-store or in-museum traffic, but they want to build a community outside of it, and they want to share the images with the rest of the world. So, people didn't stop going to movie theaters when we started having videos at home or DVDs, what have you. In fact, to some extent, it seems like, one segment of the industry has helped the other. That's my guess, is that streaming digital art on screens are going to make more people appreciate it, more people want to have it around, and probably ultimately help museum traffic rather than hinder it, just by increasing art awareness, because it'll be that much easier for many millions of people rather than hundreds of thousands, rather than thousands of people. Thousands of people can go to museum. Hundreds of thousands of people can have TVs. Millions of people have TVs. So I'm thinking it'll actually increase its popularity.
This reminds me of the Boston Museum of Science. Now, it's not an art museum, but it's a museum. And the current director of that museum decided that it was more than a museum in the conventional sense, that it was a center of learning. And it has huge outreach programs that go all over the country and the world, teaching science to kids in school and the like. It becomes a repository of education. And I agree with you. Thinking about it, I think that art museums are going to see the same possibilities, and they're going to reach out and try to teach people about art that people didn't know about it. They're going to do the same thing as the Boston Museum of Science. It's so easy and productive for them to do that. It's the modern, the science of museums, if you will, competes with the science of information technology.
I think that the enlightened museum directors, and I think it includes most of them at this point, recognize that, and they're keenly aware of it and want to capitalize on it.
Well, this in the third part of our show, which we're in the middle of right now, we always ask, the same question of all of our guests, and that is, what is the dark side? What are the problems you've had in putting this together? What are the problems, if any, that you're having now in promulgating it? What problems do you see in the future? How are you going to deal with those problems?
We have well, as with any new technology and any startup, the issue is whether we're too early or not, and we're hoping that we're not. But there still are some built-in biases that people have about, for power reasons, I want to have my TV turned off all the time, and that clearly is an issue. That we have to educate people that the current generation of smart TVs, which uses LED technology, uses very little power, and there's no downside to leaving it on. But that's an issue that we're kind of working, we have to educate people through. A lot of people have sort of trained from their mothers, from their fathers, turn it off. Mm-hmm. In order to enjoy the Artkick service, while you can look at it on the smartphone or tablet, it becomes really, really impressive and actually begins to sort of change your life in small ways if it's on a large screen. So it's really important to us that we convince people to have those large screens on, more when they're not watching TV.
Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
Education, talk about it, point out, what the real, energy impact is. It's like a 37-inch smart TV. If you keep it on, they all come with energy stickers these days. Mm-hmm. If you keep it on for 5 hours a day, 365 days a year, you're talking about $7.50, in electrical consumption, which is pretty trivial.
Any other issues? Any problems? We talked earlier about, the possibility of copyright questions. the possibility, I suppose, of somebody making a claim on a given image, particularly a photograph. Any other issues like that?
Well, that's, the copyright is certainly an issue, and we're just choosing to basically obey, to be very conservative so that the images that we present on the service are already in the public domain, which means the copyright has expired, or if they're from an artist that's a contemporary artist, we have the license rights to them. And that's, so we're just basically complying with current copyright law, and therefore it becomes a non-issue. It's an issue in the sense that we have to be aware of it, but since we are aware of it and we're working within it, we're okay.
How about the software itself? Have you had any issues with it? I mean, in making it work right?
Well, like anything else, any code has bugs, so we have to eliminate those. And we have a user interface, and we've been iterating our user interface because it's really important to us that the user experience be easy. We want it to be as easy as working a simple remote control, not something that's hard and complex. So at this point, we now have thousands of users as opposed to tens of users. We've only, because we just recently launched. And we've iterated the user interface 3 major times, and we'll probably continue doing that. I'm sure there'll always be ways to make it a bit easier for people to traverse their way around through the app.
Why do I feel that you're not doing the actual coding, that somebody else is? Who is doing the coding, Stephen?
I am not doing the actual coding. You are correct. I am more a marketing guy. Although I'm a kind of a nerdy technical marketing guy.
That's the best thing.
Having been around a lot of high-tech startups. Our founder is quite technical, and we have a lead developer who is also massively technical. So there is a brain trust doing the programming. I mean, our CEO, another one of my co-founders.
I love when CEOs do coding.
Our CEO is very technical, and our lead developer is even more technical.
You said you knew him, that Sheldon Laub? You
Yes,
knew him from
he and I
before?
are,
You guys are friends, is that it?
Friends, and we were business colleagues many, many, many years ago.
So, question, elephant in the room, how are you going to make money with this? It's free now, right?
It is free now, and I think I may have mentioned we have what's called a freemium business model, which means that there will always be a large free component, and we will enhance the free service over time. But in addition to that, once we build a large audience, we will offer premium channels, and the people will pay a subscription for the premium channels. That business model is, again, very akin to what Pandora or Spotify do with music. So it's a business model that does work. It's proven to work in at least an analogous industry segment. We just want to do for digital still images something similar to what has been done to digital audio.
Okay, we're going to take our last short break. That's Stephen Kahn. He's the founder of Artkick. He joins us by Skype from Silicon Valley. This is Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. We're talking about Artkick and how it has realized a project that Bill Gates was frustrated about years ago. And when we come back, we'll talk about how this is going to change the world. We'll also talk about your pricing for the upper level model of the program. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Alilo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
We're back. We're live. We're here with Stephen Kahn, one of the founders of Artkick, which is an art and photography program that lives on the web and in your smartphone. We're here on Think Tech Talks, and we're talking about that program with Stephen. So, Stephen, what is the pricing for the higher level, version of the program? What do you have in mind? I mean, if you're not doing it already, what do you plan to charge for the higher level version?
The premium services do not exist today, and we envision something on the order of a couple bucks to $2, $3, $4, $5 a month, something in that range. Mm-hmm. We really don't know yet, and we'll test our way depending on what basically what premium services we offer. Our current task, and certainly the most important task, is building a large audience for the free product, which then justifies the premium service. So we're focused maniacally, if you will, on adding, basically building a lot of value into the Artkick service so we can attract a large user base.
Sure. Free means test.
Well, it actually means more than that. The free service will always be at least 3/4 of what we do, if not 80%, and it'll always get enhanced. We'll never take features away from the free service, but we certainly do have ideas for the premium service, which would go above and beyond it.
Well, think about having that microscope thing where you zoom in on a part of the painting, and press a slider or a button, and you're zooming in right down to the strokes of the brush. Anyway, if we started out with Bill Gates, we should talk about Bill Gates now. There's a company here. Actually, it's BAE Systems, British Aviation Engineering Systems, that built a kind of a tech center, and they put multiple screens up on one wall, dozens and dozens of big monitors on one wall, and taken together, it would be one picture. Really impressive. The whole wall becomes one big monitor. And the materials I got about, you talked about a tech tool called Roku. I don't know if Roku does this, but I wonder if there's any technology where I can go out and buy lots of monitors. I can hang them up on one wall, and I can send one big picture to the whole array of monitors. And that would, of course, be what Bill Gates was after. And I wonder if that's in the offing now for the average homeowner. Could this happen?
Well, definitely it can happen. It's basically called posterizing, where if you had a 3x3 monitor display, so you have 9 monitors and you're sending one image to those 9 monitors. Most of the 64-bit operating systems, on Mac and Windows 8.1 and the Mac 10.9 will actually do that now. So that's very doable, and it's very doable. Let's put it that way.
But I've got to have outputs to all those separate monitors. I probably need another piece of hardware, don't I?
I'm not saying it's entirely trivial, but it's certainly the technology and the software and the hardware to do it exists. Someone has to buy the hardware and to hook it up. And you're right. You're talking about connecting up multiple monitors, but it is totally and technically doable today. And there are plenty of people at least there are hardware VARs doing it, and more sophisticated consumers, broadcast consumers doing it.
Well, a lot of people are moving to bigger and bigger screens. And it becomes unwieldy to get a screen of more than 100 inches diagonal. So maybe lots of smaller screens all tied up with that kind of software-hardware combination is the way to the future. And if that is so, and if Bill Gates's dream becomes the dream of John Q. Everyman, then I think your program would be pretty popular to decorate my wall, the whole wall. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's a reasonable enhancement for some future version of our service, and as people's needs evolve. I mean, absolutely. One thing I wanted to go back to, you mentioned the Roku box. If someone has a TV that isn't, a brand new TV, and a brand new quote unquote smart TV being one that has an internet connection built into it, by buying a device like a Roku box, which is basically a streaming video box for $50, $70, you can turn any TV, any HD TV into a smart TV by basically the Roku device connects to your wireless network, and then you connect one short cord between the Roku box, which is about the size of a pack of cigarettes, if you will, and your TV, and you're good to go.
Yeah, so everybody will have the opportunity. So taking all this together, everything we've talked about, the art, the fact that this is a way to see world-class art, maybe even closer, maybe more intimately than before, to visit museums in your very living room, to have bigger and bigger images on your wall and all around your house potentially, and to have a greater library with greater functionality on your premium service that you're developing. How is this going to change my life in my house? How is it going to change the way how is it going to change the whole thing about apps controlling televisions? What do you see in the future for all of this?
Well, in terms of how it changes the house, I think, Bill's vision of art being displayed in digital interactive picture frames is going to happen. And it's going to be I think you alluded to it, it's not just taking advantage of the TVs that you currently have, which is what we see happening in the short term, in the near term. But longer term, I think pretty much most photography, a lot of images and a lot of decoration throughout the home is going to be these digital displays that are mounted permanently in places where people aren't watching video, but indeed want to have a piece of art. Here's an interesting little tidbit. If you buy a lower end, like 37-inch diagonal smart TV, you can actually get them for around $300. If you were to frame a 37-inch photograph or oil painting with a high-end framer, you might easily pay $300 or $400 on the high end to have it framed. And while not everybody is spending that kind of money on framing, but the point is the framing price is pretty much going to stay in that zone, and the cost of these screens is coming down. So increasingly, it's becoming cheaper to put up a digital screen versus a high-end piece of artwork that's framed. And I'm not saying it's going to get replaced, but I think more and more people are going to opt to have digital frames to display art. So I think that's going to change what happens over the next decade or so in terms of home decor. I think that's for real. You're asking also what's happening with apps. Well, I mean, clearly smartphone penetration is now huge and growing. So pretty much everybody has, or most people have, a fair amount of computer intelligence with them, all the time, whether it's in their pocket or whether it's a wristwatch in some future Dick Tracy time frame, who knows? But there's a lot of compute power, and we can take advantage of it. Which is, we're taking advantage of it by making it into an intelligent remote control. But more and more people are going to do that, and those apps on smartphones and tablets will control other devices in your home. And you see a lot of that. There are apps to control automated lighting. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We're talking about controlling HD TV displays for art, but there's no end to that. As more and more homes have wireless networks and the speed and reliability of the wireless networks increases, and it's certainly done that an awful lot, even in the last 5 years, let alone the last 10, there's no end to where it's going.
Oh, well, my heart is beating faster, Stephen. That's Stephen Kahn, one of the founders of Artkick, a very creative program that puts high-end art on your wall, high-end photography on your wall, changes the way you live in your house, and will probably have a lot to do with changing it more as we go forward. This is Think Tech Talks. We've been talking about Artkick here in Hawaii, but maybe all around the world. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with your audience.
Aloha.